know for damn sure that I know we have won the 2026 NBA championship. Oh my goodness. Okay, about time I was able to make a video about this. It's been a little bit. I got mad emotional Saturday night after game 5, so I really wasn't trying to talk to anybody like that. I was in my own room by myself, just watching the rest of the game, and then I broke down for like 20 minutes. Holy shit. Life is so crazy, bro. Who would have thought the New York Knicks, out of all teams, would win the championship this year? It's not because I never had faith in them. I was losing faith a little bit, especially that January stretch. Oh my goodness, it took a few years off my life, bro. But ultimately, I became really numb to it. Because I'm used to losing a lot. I'm used to being a joke of the league. But now, when the New York Knicks are winning games and they're this good, the league is so much better. And yes, this is also coming from a biased perspective. And it's also coming from a general perspective of just the league overall. Dude, look how many people were tuning into the games. So many people were tuning into the games. I feel like the views have been the highest in quite a while. And it's because the New York Knicks are such a huge market, aside from the Lakers. It's such a big deal because it's been 53 years since they last won the NBA championship. The New York Knicks have been waiting, the fans have been waiting all this time for them to finally win a championship. And look at how outside has been ever since, even from the start of the Eastern Conference Finals. Dude, this team was so destined to win it all, especially after Game 3 of that Hawks series where they lost by a point. That entire team woke up, swept the rest of the Hawks series. They came back from 2-1 down, won the rest of the series. They had to play Philadelphia in the next round, swept Philadelphia. Then they go up against the Cleveland Cavaliers, swept the Cavaliers, goes up against the Spurs, who are a very young team. Gentlemen sweep them. They only lost game 3. But you know what the crazy part is? All 3 of their losses were by a margin of either 1 point or by 4 points. They didn't even get blown out in any of their losses. They lost by 1 point in the first 2 losses that they lost to the Hawks. And a lot of it was because CJ McCollum heroics in the late stretches. And then game 3, it was a heroics of Victor Wembanyama, who was a 7'5" freak. Even though he needs to continue to polish his offensive game, still a freak. And then Stephon Castle went crazy down the stretch. The entire game in general. So it's just things like that have halted a possibility of the New York Knicks just sweeping the entire playoff run. And you know what? They actually needed those 2 playoff losses against the Hawks. Because if they didn't lose those 2 games against the Hawks, they would have never woken up. They probably would have lost in round 2. They probably would have lost against the Hawks. They finally woke up to running the offense a little bit more for Karl Anthony Towns and letting Jalen Brunson get off the ball a little bit. Doesn't constantly get over-relied on down the stretch. You can have Cat be on the top of the paint and be more of like a 3-point threat. Of course, he was a 3-point threat. It's that they don't maximize his full play style. They make it seem like he's score, like ordinary score, but he can literally play make. A lot of Cat's greatest playoff games have been from this playoff run. And maybe, just maybe, he's not always scoring points, but he has been honing down and simplifying his role. So Karl Anthony Towns definitely gets so much credit because down the stretch, even after game 3, he has been the most impactful player on the team, arguably. OG Anunoby, people, including myself, were talking about his contract. We're mad concerns. He is the second highest paid player behind Karl Anthony Towns, and he gets paid more than Jalen Brunson. So there was concerns. However, his entire playoff run, it's like he never missed. Down this playoff run, it's like he turned it up a notch. He was so composed a lot of the time. He was guarding the best player always and locking them down consistently. And he was scoring a lot of points on high efficiency. Crazy. He averaged 20 points in the playoffs on high efficiency. Mikal Bridges had a horrible second half to the season. But especially down the stretch of the playoffs, especially after game 3, very reliable. Very reliable. Had some very good defensive stops. Josh Hart, he's been super up and down. This guy was just useless in certain games in the regular season. And then the playoffs come, this guy's a workhorse. He's doing everything and anything that's not shown up in the box score. See, Josh Hart is a type of role player that you gotta give more props to. Not over the star players, of course, but in a general sense, if you're looking at the whole scheme of how basketball works, Josh Hart or role players like him need a lot more credit. They need a lot more priority. Because you need those players that know their role, that they know that they can't score a lot of points. They need to be guys that crash the glass. They need to be guys that get every little loose ball. They get people involved. They get the teammates involved. They make timely shots. Miles McBride, Landry Shamet, these guys made timely shots. These were our shooters. They made timely shots down the stretch. Guys like Jordan Clarkson, even if in general he is kind of useless, there are games down the stretch where he's been impactful. Mitchell Robinson is a workhorse too. Mitchell Robinson's been on my team for 8 years. It's crazy. But he's such a reliable backup center because he's able to become a workhorse. And you don't care. He's going to grab offensive rebounds over you. He's going to do as much as possible for you not to get that rebound. And he holds it down. He holds it down. And other guys, Mohamed Diawara throughout the regular season, needed him most. When he's needed, he's always showing up. He's a rookie, so he's not going to play any playoff minutes unless it's garbage time. But he's been so valuable. He's such a valuable player down the line in these years because he is also somebody that's a hybrid of somebody that is going to hone in his three-point abilities and defensive skills. Because he has the wingspan, he has the athletic ability. Tyler Kolek is a steady point guard. Tyler Kolek's going to be somebody down the stretch, going to be a really quality backup point guard. There were games down the stretch in the regular season, or throughout in general. He's been so reliable when guards like Miles McBride were injured, Landry Shamet was injured, or Jalen Brunson struggles here and there. Tyler Kolek is able to be somebody that can be relied upon. to be like a third string point guard. He's been good. He's been good. So, although he doesn't play playoff minutes because of McBride and Shamet and Clarkson even, to back up Brunson, well, Clarkson's more of a wing now because Jordan Clarkson took his role a little bit more serious of being more focused on not just being a microwave scorer. Either way, those guys are needed. Jose Alvarado that we got from the trade deadline. Jose Alvarado needed him most. Game 4, this guy showed up. This guy is a defensive menace. He is very gritty, tenacious. And he's not going to score a lot of points, but he's a tenacious defender. He's absolutely ridiculous. I want Jose Alvarado on my team for the next while. I don't want him going anywhere. Then Mike Brown, there were some questions if Mike Brown would stay the entire year. And then over the course of time, especially now, we can say that Mike Brown really did a great job just being able to make adjustments accordingly, especially during games at times. There are during games at times, especially in the finals, where they need, whether they need a bucket or they need some type of momentum. Mike Brown really knows how to take advantage of these mismatches. He knows how to navigate through the gameplay just very well. He can strategize with the fact that, hey, the Spurs are very inexperienced, even if they have a big lead, which has been every single game. Every single game, they have a big lead, and then down the stretch, they just lose momentum because they're not only so young and inexperienced, but down the stretch, they just start playing such careless ball, the Spurs. Bro, there were stretches where Victor Wembanyama looks human. There were stretches where De'Aaron Fox is like one of the worst basketball players you've ever seen in your entire life. It's been such a horrific finals for De'Aaron Fox. Same with Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson really won Sixth Man of the Year for no reason. Him and De'Aaron Fox have like no trade value. So even if you're gonna try to trade them, you're gonna be like, oh, these two should be traded. Bro, who wants them? Who wants Keldon Johnson when he can be exposed in the playoffs a lot of the time because he ain't that good? Like, he done great for the Spurs in the regular season, and then in the playoffs he just disappears because he's useless. His game doesn't really translate that well in the playoffs. Stephon Castle was very up and down. Dylan Harper was like the second best Spurs player, and then Devin Vassell was like the third. Stephon Castle would be the second best if he didn't freaking suck the last 2 games so tremendously. But they're a young team. They're kind of immature. They lack experience. With their first run being the NBA Finals and stealing Game 3 in their home floor, the MSG, that's pretty impressive. They can build upon that. They still need to question how they're going to incorporate Dylan Harper more, especially because De'Aaron Fox is taking up so much space. But De'Aaron Fox's contract is so terrible. Nobody's going to really want his contract like that unless they're like a salary-eating team out there. And who knows? Who knows? Same with Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson's contract isn't that bad though. Is that Keldon Johnson is somebody that he can't, he's pretty replaceable. He's not somebody that's going to stay on the team for very long. He's going to be pretty replaceable. Like Dylan Harper could win Sixth Man of the Year if Fox stays. Like Dylan Harper can use scoring. He can be a microwave scorer if De'Aaron Fox stays one more year. But the Spurs, even if they fell short in 5 games, I don't think this is really the end for them at all. I still think, regardless of how they ended the season, I still think they overachieved a lot. They weren't a team that was supposed to be this good so quickly. But they got a lot of playoff experience now. Victor, first finals, wasn't super terrible, wasn't the most amazing. But Victor, once he gets a go-to move, he prioritizes more honing in his offensive skills rather than just doing whatever on offense consistently. And he's a little immature. I mean, he's gonna be great. He's gonna be great. He got the tools to continue to get better and better. Dude, him having this type of stat line that he put up, and his offensive game is still pretty raw, that's pretty freaking scary. It's not just because that he could possibly average more than like 30 points a playoff. Not even just that. It's because he can be so efficient or so consistent, but not be able to find a consistent rhythm with a go-to move or without one. So congrats to my New York Knicks for winning a championship once and for all. I've been waiting for 14 years for this. Could be an exaggeration. But again, I also had to witness half of my fandom years watching this team try to rebuild. Freaking relegating mediocre to trash point guard or old washed up point guards. Jason Kidd, last year, 2013, last year, Paul Prigion was a 35-year-old rookie. Like, are we serious? Raymond felt out of shape after 2013 when he had a solid 2013 season. Jose Calderon, washed, worn down. Derrick Rose, shell of himself. But he came back in 2021 and was our best player behind Taj Gibson. With a team that had Julius Randle had All-NBA second team in 2021. And this guy, Julius Randle, completely shat the bed. And then we had point guards like Emmanuel Mudiay, Ron Baker, Dennis Smith Jr., Frank Ntilikina. Aside from Baker, all these point guards were projects that completely failed and fumbled. And then Jalen Brunson comes, and Jalen Brunson, it's like he was destined to be here. Freaking crazy. This guy was a second round 40-something pick of the 2018 draft, right? Something like that. This guy was not supposed to be even a starter. This guy was supposed to be a back end high role player. This guy wasn't supposed to be a superstar for the New York Knicks. He wasn't even supposed to be a starter for the Mavs. Dude, his last year with the Mavs, he became a starter down the stretch, and then that's when the playoff heroics began. He was like the best player when Luka was out for a little bit, and then Luka came back, and then Luka and Brunson have been cooking until they got eliminated later in, what was it, the second round, third round? Did they even make it to the conference finals? Yeah, they made it to the conference finals, right? They made it against they played the Warriors. They lost in 5. They beat the Jazz, and they beat the Thunder. No, not the Thunder. The Thunder weren't good back then. Wow. The Clippers, probably. Probably the Clippers. Yeah, because the Rockets weren't good, the Spurs weren't good. Oh, It was the Suns. Do you know why? Because during that Sun series, that's when in Game 7 of the Sun series, the Suns got blown out by like 40 points at home. Over 40 points. They completely fumbled. The Suns had a 64-win team the following year after they made the finals, and they completely just lost any type of momentum. During Game 6, because they lost Game 6 when they won Game 5, they were up 3-2, and then they completely faltered Game 6. And Game 7, it was just even worse. I remember, they beat the Jazz, they beat the Suns in 7 games, and they went to the conference finals, they lost in 5. They got gentlemen swept. But Luka and Brunson was crazy down the entire playoffs. And then Brunson left in free agency because he became an unrestricted free agent. And truth be told, who would have thought that Jalen Brunson would be the New York Knicks superstar? Who would have thought? And a lot of strategic moves from the Knicks front office. Something I never thought that would ever be the case. Super strategic. Brunson's like the number one option, and we didn't even know how it would impact us. And the Knicks made the playoffs. And during Jalen Brunson's years in the New York Knicks, 2023 season, they lost to the Heat, the 8th seed Heat, in the second round in 6 games. I mean, the Heat were such a good team for an 8th seed. They weren't even an 8th seed. They were just injured a lot in the regular season. 2024, lost to the Pacers in the second round. So they were second round exit again. The Knicks were too injury prone. They got beat up. Julius Randle had a season-ending injury in like January. 2025, they lost to the Pacers again, this time in the Eastern Conference Finals in 6 games. The Pacers was just on a mission. They had so much magic against them. They were on a mission, bro. They were coming back from 15 down with like 3 minutes to go, and they either just beat the buzzer. They had so many clutch moments. It was just freaking crazy. And then 2026 now, they won a chip. This is a lot more playoff wins than some teams in the league. This was a lot more playoff wins than Carmelo Anthony was able to contribute to the New York Knicks. Crazy stuff. Carmelo Anthony is now an afterthought. Dude, a guy that I used to look up to, he was one of, if not my favorite player in the league at one point. But now, he's an afterthought. And probably deservedly so, because he didn't really do anything on the New York Knicks. After all, what has he done? The most he's done was get swept by Boston in his first year as a New York Knick, 2011. Of course, it's Boston, but Boston was already old at that point, and you get swept by them. I know the team wasn't great. They traded their death for Carmelo Anthony because Carmelo Anthony's so dumb. Why would you request a trade? Why would you want to request a trade so bad out of Denver just during the season when you could have just waited in free agency and just leave? This freaking dumbass. That's one thing. 2012, there were some injuries, but of course because they were getting outmatched, because they struggled so much down the stretch, or especially in the beginning of the season with Carmelo Anthony leading the team. It took Jeremy Lin-Sandy heroics. It took J.R. Smith and Steve Novak clicking threes down the stretch just for them to make the playoffs just slightly. And they got first rounded for 2 years in a row. And then the next year, 2013, that was the best team. That was like one of my favorite teams when I started watching. But ultimately, they lost in the second round to the gritty Indiana Pacers. A Pacers team that was perfectly matching up their personnel against Carmelo Anthony. Because they know damn well Carmelo Anthony isn't all that, for one. For two, they over-relied on Carmelo Anthony isolation. And he's such a ball stopper that they could just easily just not only stop him, but they could just stop everybody else because J.R. Smith is such a streaky shooter. They stopped everyone else because they didn't really have a point guard like that. Tyson Chandler was hobbled. Amari Stoudemire was injured for most of the season. He barely played anyways. So it's like they were super outmatched by the Pacers. The same pace that took the 2013 Miami Heat to 7 games. And then after that, no more playoffs for the New York Knicks until 2021. Julius Randle came. He had some voodoo magic and he became so good so quickly, but then he fell back to reality because the playoffs came. Well, man, you needed all those years of torment and just vile behavior from the Knicks, allowing Lance Thomas to last more than 5 years on an NBA team when he was so bad, and he's not even an NBA player, but somehow he survived the team for 5 years. You needed that. You needed to survive the Alonzo Trier apparent blackballing because he played only 2 years. He was so good in his regular season. He showed so much promise, and then in the second year, he was so bad. He got benched, and nobody really knew what was going on, and then he got waived. He got blackballed so hard, nobody even think it was even a blackball in the first place. He just freaking sucked, to be honest. It is what it is. All the project players that we had, for the most part, were destined failures. And then ultimatum, aside from Kristaps Porzingis, who's really still in the league right now? And Kristaps Porzingis was traded years ago at this point. Years ago, he requested a trade. Oh my goodness, dude. So much of that team has changed, but the guy that stayed along the way throughout that entire process, even though he got drafted in 2018, Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson was somebody that stayed all the course of just the Knicks' vile acts. Mitchell Robinson, he went from being on a team that had no direction at all to being on a championship team. Wild. Wild. I'm going to be at the parade on Thursday. We'll see what happens from there. I cannot wait for the parade. If it's too crowded, I'm not going to be there for long because I don't like crowds like that at all. That's one of my biggest pet peeves and fears. So if I get too much in the crowd, I'm out. I'm bouncing. It is what it is. So you best bet that the New York Knicks parade is going to be something serious. There are going to be so many fans. There's going to be so much happening. Whew. This is what New York wanted, and that's what they need. They need that little moment. They need that unity. New York Knicks have not tasted a championship in quite some time. This is the moment. This is the moment where everybody comes out and they become like best friends or something. Like, hey, you're my dog. All because they won a championship. Guys, stay safe out there. Be careful. Look around you. Be careful that who you're surrounding yourself with. Bro, within the next video, after this, I'm going to be talking about, again, this space. I was supposed to do it last video, but ultimately something else popped up because I had a talk with my stepbrother about this. And we had a lot of things to say. We had like a half hour to almost an hour talking. And this was my therapy. This is my healing. This is my church. This is the church that I signed up for. I didn't sign up for a church where I have to obey to any and everybody. And they just tell me constantly what to do with my own life. Well, it is what it is. So, stay safe, guys. Be careful. Be grateful that you're still here today, breathing this air, and be kind to other people. Stay safe. Love yourself. Bye.